Chapter 2. They Said Yes. I was clean when Ronnie and I met. By then, I was well aware of my pattern. I'd put down the drugs, find the cutest single guy in whatever church basement meeting I was attending regularly, and start a new relationship. This time, 3 months in, I caught sight of Ronnie. "Hey, do you want to go out sometime?" I asked him one night after a few weeks of post-meeting meetups at the nearby Friendlies. That Friday, he picked me up in his classic Monte Carlo, the T-top off, and we went on a harbor cruise. He stopped to kiss me in the parking lot before we got back into his car. Following a late-night dinner, we ended up at his place. Just like that, we were a couple, spending every night together. I was hoping this relationship would keep me from messing up my life as I'd done so many times. Most recently, 6 months before meeting Ronnie, I'd been academically dismissed from law school. After all I'd gone through to get far enough to be accepted, I blew it. I'd applied to law school before graduating with my bachelor's degree, despite fearing rejection because of my criminal record and past drug use. Those things made me the kind of person who needed a lawyer, not the kind who became a lawyer. I was also a high school dropout with a GED, but with over 4 years sober, and having worked with a lawyer friend I'd met in 12-step meetings, I figured I'd give it a shot. As far-fetched as it seemed for a welfare, food stamp receiving, single mother of 2 young children to succeed with such a lofty goal, I wanted it badly. My desire to help those like me, the people who'd been born into the bottom of the shit pile, had become a central theme in my future life fantasy. But what I secretly hoped for, what I really wanted, was for people to see me as a person of value. And Suffolk Law School had said yes. I was going to be a lawyer. It was my chance to show everybody that I wasn't a druggy loser. But by the time the acceptance letter came in the mail, I was living in North Andover, a 45-minute drive from Gloucester, feeling lonelier than ever. Although the move had felt necessary after my mother's death the previous October, now it seemed reckless. I didn't know anybody in the area. That's when I met Rick, the brother of a friend. He was a few years older than me, divorced with 2 children, and he had a drinking problem. With over 4 years clean and sober, I wasn't at all attracted to him at first, but whenever we were in the same room, he made every effort to get close to me. So when Rick stopped by my apartment one night for a visit, I invited him in. We sat on the couch and talked while Van Morrison played on the boombox. "Come on, Tootsie," he said. "Just give me a chance. You won't regret it." "I don't know. I'll think about it." When Into the Mystic began to play, Rick stood and held out his hand. "Let's dance." "I'm not going to dance in my living room." He held his pose. It was his determination that got me. I took his hand, and we danced. A few weeks later, we were spending every day together, him with his 2 kids and me with mine. A month into our budding relationship, as we stood in his kitchen, Rick pulled an orange prescription bottle out of his jacket pocket. My stomach did a flip. I moved closer. "What's that?" "Percocet. I have a slip disc in my back." "Oh, can I have one? I have a headache," I said, almost without thinking. He handed me the pill as though it were an aspirin. In his defense, he didn't know how long I'd been clean, or just how much pain that one pill would inevitably cause me. I didn't either. I convinced myself it would be okay, that I deserved to feel good. During the 4.5 years I'd been without drugs, I'd lost so much, including my mother and Jack, the man I'd loved. Besides, it was just one tiny pill. Just before the start of classes at Suffolk Law, less than a month after taking that first painkiller, I was taking them daily. Fentanyl found me a few months after that. At first, I did a pretty good job of pretending to hold it all together. Then it all fell apart. The academic probation warning came at the end of my first semester. It said something like this: "If you don't get your act together, we'll throw you out." As much as the threat terrified me, since I'd yet to fail at college, I couldn't stop getting high. At the end of my third semester, I got the dismissal letter. I appealed. There was no plan B. Without law school, I'd never be a lawyer, and without that, I had no purpose or hope for my future. It had been my one opportunity to prove I was worth something, even though I didn't believe it myself. The appeals meeting at Suffolk happened on a weekday morning. I drove into Boston alone. While waiting, I gnawed at my nails, thinking about how I should have put on fake ones like I had at the start of school. Back then, they'd made me feel like less of an outsider, like I could pass for normal and people might not see the truth of what I was. But the bloody stumps at the tips of my fingers had always been a dead giveaway to the mess that lived inside me. I'd taken a few Vicodin half an hour before my scheduled appointment. Facing the committee while in withdrawal was unfathomable. I was high as a kite by the time I heard my name. There were 2 tables in the room, arranged in the shape of a T. Each of the dozen chairs surrounding them held a body, except for the one sitting alone at the bottom of the letter. That one was clearly for me. Each of the faculty spoke: the dean, the associate dean, somebody from financial aid, my academic advisor, and all of my professors. All I heard was that I didn't measure up, that I wasn't enough, and that I was stupid to ever pretend I could belong there. My face was hot and itchy from the pills, and even if I had something left of my nails with which to scratch it, I wouldn't have let them see my hands. "Do you have anything to add, or do you have any questions?" somebody asked. They were all looking at me. I didn't have any questions. I hadn't even heard everything they'd said, and I was sure they'd already made up their minds. "Yeah," I said. "Who makes these stupid rules anyway?" The room was quiet. Even I couldn't believe what I'd said. The dean broke the silence. "Okay. We'll inform you of our decision." I stood so abruptly that my chair nearly tipped backward, and I ran from the room before any of them had a chance to get out of their seats. I never told them about the pills, or later about my recovery. I'd like to think they would have given me another chance had I been honest with them. But I couldn't tell them the truth. It would confirm what they already believed about me. I didn't belong there. Of course, they were right. I was more convinced than ever that I didn't have a prestigious bone in my body. The dismissal hit me hard. I had to figure out how to become a lawyer and prove I could be normal. Or pretend I could be. Either way, I had to be clean to make it happen, which is how I ended up back in meetings. Soon, I was able to string some drug-free days together. Days turned into weeks, and weeks became months. Then I met Ronnie. Unlike when I'd been with Rick, my relationship with Ronnie helped me stay clean, at least for the first couple of weeks. His recovery and commitment to 12-step meetings made it easy for me to do the right thing. Then one afternoon, we stopped at Ronnie's house so he could let Harley, his Rottweiler, outside. Ronnie's father Tom was there, working in the yard. "He likes to stay busy," Ronnie said, before calling him inside for an introduction. The 3 of us chatted in the kitchen as Ronnie opened one of the cabinets, revealing 10 or so orange pill bottles. My heartbeat quickened at the sight of the familiar containers standing erect like soldiers. A few minutes later, when Ronnie and Tom went outside, I helped myself to a pill from one of the 2 bottles labeled Extra Strength Vicodin. My plan had been to hold on to it for future pain, but I swallowed it before Ronnie came back inside. At first, I took Ronnie's pills sparingly. Then, I started getting prescriptions from Dr. Simmons again, and I replaced what I'd taken. Ronnie rarely looked in the bottles. He only used painkillers for actual pain, since they hadn't been his drug of choice. Within a couple of weeks, I was taking more of the pills than I could replace, so I started putting similar-looking vitamins in Ronnie's pill bottles. I couldn't stop. When Ronnie took me to Aruba and proposed on our hotel's veranda, I wanted to tell him the truth. But I didn't. If I told him, I'd definitely have to do something about my problem. I reasoned that he wouldn't want to hear about it anyway. He'd have to break it off if I kept using, and he didn't want that any more than I did. I said yes to Ronnie's marriage proposal and made it my goal to stop using before our wedding date of June 1st, 2002. That gave me a year to defeat my addiction once and for all. Plenty of time to get clean and then married. Law school in between it all. I could manage that. I was sure of it.